Hey, it's Sam, and I'm talking today about the full moon in Aries. This full moon in Aries is in Critica Nakshatra. It's happening on November 15th, 2024. And it is opposite the sun in Libra. You see, we had the new moon in Libra, and the sun's at the very end of Libra. And then we have um, this full moon opposite. So I'm going to be talking about those things today and a few other special things as well. Please like the video. Clicking like helps a lot more than you know. It pushes the video higher in relevant video searches. Also, please leave a nice comment. Comments also help more than you know as it raises the video in searches. Many times with hundreds of likes, there are only a dozen comments and they can be disproportionately negative. So be positive. Let me know if you like this. Even just a few words really helps. So subscribe, ring the bell to get notified of upcoming videos. Yeah, please do that. Thank you very much. And there is also another thing that is coming up, and that is the 2025 forecasts are now here. In 2025, you can register for the forecast, the 10 most important shifts that you need to know. Big stuff coming up, of course, in 2025. We just had this huge election, and we're all in the midst of these big changes. So that's also there. You can actually go to 2025 vedicastrology.com for that. But let's get into this full moon in Aries. This full moon in Aries is happening November 15th, 2024. And as you can see, it says Critica Nakshatra Agni Purification. So this is also the nakshatra that's right in between Aries and Taurus, right? Just did a full course on the nakshatras, and this is one of those transitional nakshatras that is literally transition between Aries and Taurus. So what this means is that there's a common thread between these two signs, and they're connected to Kritikka, which is the fire. But it's the fire that's in the earth, the fire contained in the earth, right? And so this is a very important and pivotal section of the sky. The moon is actually exalted in this nakshatra. It's exalted in the Taurus side, right? But so having the moon here, it's at actually the full moon happens at literally 29 degrees. And it's, right at that end of Aries, but it's at that what's called Sandhi point in between these two signs. So this is quite important because it shows the power of purification and particularly as it's a full moon, the moon is very bright, and it's purifying our agreements, those agreements that we have with others. Having this full moon at this very last degree, it's actually 2940, is right on this pivotal junction between that strong and forceful individuality of Aries transitioning into the values and connection of Taurus, right? And so this is interesting because, again, the sun is in the sign of Libra, where the sun has been in its debilitated sign. It's debilitated in Libra because it's where we're trying to make agreements, and the sun is the part of us that is about our individuality. But this full moon now in Aries is to harmonize that agreement quality with our individual identity and sense of purpose. So, when the full moon is in Aries, again, the sun is in Libra, so we're ready for this kind of healthy individuality and identity. Because many times, the sort of bottom line with the sun being in Libra or Libra energy in general is we make the agreement before we check in with our identity, and even most specifically with our values, which is the Taurus principle. So identity and values are very much what the Aries-Taurus junction is. And again, when we think about identity and values, it's almost like the values are what we notice the most, because that means things like our friends. Taurus is a sign that has a symbol of a cow, and this is referring to that very social nature, right? And the people we surround ourselves with. So again, whereas Aries is very individual, the real value that comes through our individuality is reflected back in the people around us, in the choices that we make with our diet and exercise and value system. But it's often most easily seen by the people in our immediate environment, like our family. Our family is an extension of our values, and we have an individuality within the family. And again, I'm not just talking about our birth family. That's the first family, but I'm talking about your friends as well, like your friends and your social family. These are all part of a family, right? And they're all part of the value system and the values that you spend a lot of time, supporting or, defending. And so there's a lot of this junction here between Aries and Taurus on this full moon. And again, because it's opposite the sun in Libra, where our agreements can often get ahead of our sense of individuality. So again, one of the things about, the problem with that is we will tend to make agreements because we want the desire, because we want to fulfill the desire with that other person. Again, the romantic relationship is the easiest way to see it. But if we're not tuned into our own values, our own individuality, then we're going to make agreements that we then get frustrated with, and we might blame the other person. It's remarkable to me how much this still happens, even when people get older. I've had some experiences with it, even in the last, several months, with people, and you think you're dealing with a grown-up, for lack of a better way to put it, and that the concessions they're making and the agreements they're making romantically or in friendship or whatever is something that they're doing willingly, right? But then, it is willingly, but they're disconnected from their own values and their own individuality. And then later, when it doesn't work out or something, the fury of Aries can come and snap back and like, you did this to me, you blamed me, you blah, blah. And by the way, again, this Aries, Libra, Taurus, Scorpio, that's where all of this sort of hangs out, because the sun goes into Scorpio next, which is also where these agreements that didn't work out the way we thought they should have, maybe, because we've compromised too much, which is sun in Libra, then turns into this sinister, and you did this to me, you did this, like this kind of, again, this kind of victim mentality in Scorpio, right? So again, it's a very, I talk about this all the time, but it's still so unconscious in a lot of people, particularly if people have difficult planets in the Libra Aries axis, right? Again, because Sun is debilitated here, Saturn is debilitated in Aries. And, again, whatever it might be, there could be difficulty. So this is a very charged axis anyway, the Libra Aries axis. And you want to be aware of these kinds of things. And again, it's going to be in Critica Nakshatra, which I'm going to talk about next. You want to go to 2025vedicastrology.com for my free forecast on the 10 most important shifts that you need to know coming up in 2025. There will have implications long into the future, both collectively and personally. Mars between Gemini and Cancer from January 1st to June 6th. We have Venus retrograde. We have Mercury retrograde. We have solar eclipse in Pisces, Saturn in Aquarius. Rahu and Ketu move from where they're at now to the Aquarius-Leo axis. We also have Jupiter going into Gemini. All of these things are going to affect you, and you'll want to know how. So just register. It's free. Go to 2025vedicastrology.com. It's very easy, and you'll really get a lot out of this. Yeah, indeed. And again, there is a replay available. If you're not sure when you can make it, you can register for it, and then you can get the replay as well. But it's very important to know how these things are going to affect us all in 2025. And I'm also doing the individual forecast as well. But again, this full moon in Aries is in Critica Nakshatra, as I described and as I discussed. This is the nakshatra that's in between Aries and Taurus. And so this is where that individuality, again, like I already said, becomes a system of values. And the nakshatra of Kritikka is where it's actually ruled by the god Agni, who is the god of purification. And it's where we, again, purify the mind, purify our relationship to our desires and those attachments. And instead of unconsciously reaching out to others to fulfill our desires, which is what happens in Libra, we are, we have insight into that area of life. And that aspect of our nature is illuminated. It's not dark. It's not unconscious. It's conscious. And we're in the light relative to those things. So this is why the moon is exalted in Critica Nakshatra. Now, again, it's exalted in the Taurus part of it, but again, it's very important to see that one of the main, but it's the same nakshatra. It's not just Taurus where it's exalted, it's Kritika Nakshatra, which starts in Aries, which means that individuality, that healthy individuality, which means the healthy individuality that is able to break connection in a situation that's not serving our higher nature or our truthful identity. And so again, the thing I talked about earlier, where sometimes, even later in life, or whenever these things happen, when we get involved in connections, which is Libra, again, we have the connection in Libra because there's desire. We have a desire to connect. And we sometimes want to connect more than we want to break connection in order to maintain our values or our boundaries. And by the way, many times when people are confused around these things, their boundaries are very strange. For example, they might have absolutely, a very disconnected nature, and then all of a sudden they want to connect, and then they want to disconnect. And again, they're not sure what they want in this sense. And so again, when there's difficulty in the Libra Aries axis, then these things are quite unconscious and subconscious and can result in the aftermath of connections feeling like they were a victim, or like somebody did something to you. This is one of the biggest axes of this kind of victim perpetrator thing, especially in our relationships and whatnot. So again, what I'm saying though is that this nakshatra of Kritika this is why the moon is exalted there, because the moon is where we're longing to connect. Venus is where we want to share that pleasure and happiness with others, by the way, including sex, because that's like the deepest kind of intimacy. And we want to share that, but at what price? What's the price we're willing to pay, for example? That's what Libra is really about. When the sun is difficult, and the sun is difficult in Libra because we get disconnected from our vision and purpose, and then we pay a price that's too high. And again, instead of looking at that part and going, okay, yeah, I got outside of my value system because I wanted the connection, it's very unconscious. So we blame it on the other person, for example, or something. But again, And when we get these full moons, for example, full moons and new moons in this axis, and by the way, next month it's the same axis, or it's a different axis, but it's the same Mars-Venus opposition split going on when the sun goes into Scorpio and then the moon is full in Taurus. But there could be these same kinds of unconscious polarities. And again, things like the shadow and projection and all those kinds of things really hang out in this section of the zodiac, particularly as it relates to personal relationships. Because again, Aries is that power of the individual. Libra is that power of the agreement, where it's like my identity flows through my agreement with you. And so again, if we lose ourselves in the other and lose our power, which is the sun, in the other one, in the agreement, Libra, and we don't have good boundaries or a lot of clarity around the fact that we're, more driven by desire than we are value and identity, then it can lead to those unconscious situations. Now, again, I'm talking about the extreme. It's not always like that, but it's important to often understand the extremes because we're kind of moving in between those two things, right? Our sort of typical life energy runs in between those extremes. So it's sometimes easy to understand things like this when we look at the extremes. And so again, this full moon in Aries is about that, let's say, healthy individuality, where underneath it all, we can also see our part in certain agreements where we have felt mistreated, where we have compromised too much in order to have connection. You might be noticing these things. You might be noticing these things where you've compromised too much and minimized your value. There's a song by Iggy Pop called "Cry for Love." And I cry for love. And he says, when searching for a meaningful embrace, sometimes my self-respect took second place. Then I cry for love. Iggy Pop. But so it's a great line. When searching for a meaningful embrace, sometimes my self-respect took second place. That's owning it, right? That's like saying, okay, and like hopefully learning from it, not self-respect at second place. And that means you're a narcissist, crazy person, and you did this to me. No, it means owning it. And again, so the nakshatra of Kritika is really crucial in understanding and illuminating those possibilities. Now you see down here, there is these links where it says to subscribe. I'm going to wrap this up in a bit, but first, I did want people to know that you can get the forecast for your sign, because again, this full moon is going to be important for all people because it is happening in Aries. But where does that fall? Again, at the $9.99 level, you get the monthly full moon video to keep you aligned. So again, if you're, Capricorn, this is happening in your 4th house. If you're Scorpio, it's happening in your 6th house. And the new moon that we just had, that new moon forecast that I did when the sun and moon came together here, is also part of this. So again, the new moon forecast would be also different based on your sign, and also very detailed live video of the coming month. And you can see here in this, these are all the member forecast. They get the, they get the week ahead. They get these, you get the November forecast. You get the new moon in Libra. You get the full moon in Libra, or I'm sorry, this full moon in Aries. So really think about that. You could try it out. It's only $9.99, and you get a bunch of videos to stay in alignment. And again, also, people, I really recommend get the 2025 forecast. This is free. Just click that link at 2025vedicastrology.com. But this is where we're at, a very big touchstone here, this full moon in Aries. Again, Aries is where we start a new cycle of identity, right? But it's the moon in Libra. The sun is down. I'm sorry, it's the full moon in Aries where we start this new identity, this new cycle of identity, but it's like an emotional kind of identity, right? Whereas the sun is still down there in Libra, maybe, wondering how to sort of bring it all together. So I hope this was helpful to hear me talk about this sort of polarity that happens around the sun in Libra, where often our identity feels kind of at its lowest. And then the moon in Aries, again, it can just be a kind of emotional frustration that is a kind of backlash in response to feeling like we've given up too much. And we all feel that way, again, at times, even regardless of the way the planets are in our natal chart or whatever. We all feel that way at times. So anyway, again, I hope this was helpful. You want to go to 2025vedicastrology.com for my free forecast on the 10 most important shifts that you need to know coming up in 2025. There will have implications long into the future, both collectively and personally. Mars between Gemini and Cancer from January 1st to June 6th. We have Venus retrograde. We have Mercury retrograde. We have solar eclipse in Pisces, Saturn in Aquarius. Rahu and Ketu move from where they're at now to the Aquarius-Leo axis. We also have Jupiter going into Gemini. All of these things are going to affect you, and you'll want to know how. So just register. It's free. Go to 2025vedicastrology.com. It's very easy, and you'll really get a lot out of this. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.